So good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Anamkara Thursday night meditation program. With all my heart, with all my love, I welcome you to our program tonight, and thank you for coming. You're living embodiments of the divine, and so we get to gather together, celebrate that, dive into the practices that make that our living experience, so we can walk that into the world and delight in that moment by moment. So thank you for coming this evening. Thank you for bringing the power of your divine presence and the power of your commitment to practice. And then sharing that with everyone this evening. So again, thank you. Tonight is the first Thursday in the month, so we'll get into more of a talk, kind of more of a classic dharma talk. But we'll be starting with the opening mantras. And the opening mantras help to both invoke our divine natures, really to bring it into mind. It's already fully present. As with all the practices, they're really aimed at the mind. So the opening mantras are a way of helping to clear and settle the mind so what's already fully present can be fully perceived. So we want to come fully into this present moment, and there, waiting for us, is the fullness of our own sublime, divine nature. So we'll begin with the opening mantras. Shri Mata Kali Mahadevi Ki Jai Gajananam Bhotaganari Sevitam Kapita Jambo Palacharu Bhakshanam Umasutam Shokam Vinashakarakam Namami Vigneshwara Parapankajam Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishate Om Shanti 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 Shri Mata Kali Mahadevi Ki Jai. So once again, with all my heart, I welcome you to our program this evening. So tonight, I wanted to talk a bit more about something that I had started talking about a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Guru Purnima, and I talked a little bit about the nature of the Guru. And that spurs a lot of interest and questions for many people about the nature of the Guru, the nature of what's really celebrated is also the guru-disciple relationship. And It's this profound archetypal relationship. Archetypal meaning that it's transpersonal. It transcends individuality. So when Jung was talking about archetypes, he was talking about the nature of collective consciousness and these kind of universal forms. And so we can see that student, teacher, master, disciple, that archetypal relationship that informs spiritual traditions, academic traditions, many traditions, but it has, a specific context and meaning for understanding it in the context of sadhana, of spiritual practice, and meditative practices. And in the classic understanding from the Eastern traditions, and especially the Hindu tradition, Hindu yogic tradition, is that God, Guru, and Self are one. There's just one. God, Guru, and Self, all one. Right? And that immediately raises many different questions. How do we relate to that? How do we relate to the Guru? Who is the Guru? Who's it? If there's a Guru that we're calling an individual, how do they embody that? How do they come to embody that? How do we trust that they embody it? I mean, just endless kinds of questions can be stirred in the mind about that, some of which we'll reflect on this evening. In the Kashmir Shaivite tradition, the non-dual tradition of Kashmir Shaivism, in the Shiva Sutras, one of the sutras in the second section, the sixth sutra is Guru Rupayaha. And it's Sanskrit, it means simply the Guru is the means. And then in the commentary on that Shiva Sutra, various great beings, and like Shebaraja and Abhinavagupta, great enlightened sages from centuries ago, have talked about that and talked about the Guru, especially in the Shaivite tradition, is a reflection of the Guru principle, the power that we call the Guru. And in the Shaivite tradition, one of the understandings is that if you look at the power of the infinite, the power of the auspicious one, called Shiva, as in the Shiva Sutras, right? That power, we can sort of divide it up into 5 powers. We can divide it into the 5 powers of creation, sustaining, dissolving, right? Concealing, and revealing. And that the infinite, as the auspicious one, is continuously, this is Shakti's play. And it's the play that you see at all times, in all places. The mind, as a mini version of that, is creating things, sustaining them, dissolving them, forgetting about them, concealing them, remembering them, bringing back. So we can see the play of those powers at all times. And it's used in that way as a means for being able to bring our attention back to that, even in its limited forms, Shiva's always displaying these 5 powers. So we can always go back to the infinite one and the infinitude of those 5 powers. Well, that power of revealing, the power of revelation and transformation, that is the power of the Guru. That is what is the means. Because it's that infinite power that undoes the concealing. The concealing is ignorance. So we've talked many, many times about how ignorance, avidya, this root ignorance of not knowing the truth of who we are, not being identified with our infinite nature, and being caught and bound with identification to the mind and body and everything about it. That way of concealing our infinitude, to know what it is to be finite, because it's the infinite that conceals it, it takes the power of the infinite to cut through that. That's the power of grace. It's also known as the power of grace, the power of revelation and transformation. And so that power is what's also honored as the living Guru that's present at all times, in all places, in all people. If we have the refined vision, the refined mind, able to discern that, to have the discrimination, and to have the clarity of vision to be able to do that. clarity means that we've disidentified with the limitations of so many of those identities that we inhabit moment by moment, automatically, without thinking, unconsciously. So practices are aimed at cutting through that and are empowered by this power of revelation, this power of the guru. That's the inner guru. That's Kundalini Shakti, is another symbolic form, another way of talking about this profound power of the infinite to cut through its creation of seeming limitation, seemingly being identified and caught in that. Upon being freed of that, we see that, oh, we weren't caught in that. Our true nature was never diminished. It was always fully present. We got caught in the illusion of being identified and solely caught in this thought, feeling, memory, action, role, etc., etc. So when we're talking about that power and relating to that and understanding the guru-disciple relationship, we can see it operates on various levels. One is on this level of how do we relate to the infinite? Well, that's hard because the infinite is formless. The poor mind is a form. It likes form. How do I relate to a form? So it wants to have some form to serve as a way to be able to reach that unity consciousness with the formless. And then have that transform this vehicle of mind and body so that we see that living presence as everything, as even the dance of all forms at all times, in all places. So understanding how we then relate to the guru, this guru principle, this power of revelation and transformation, this power of grace, that becomes a way for then the mind to engage that. But part of it is to elevate, right? To elevate and understand, and that's part of what the teachings and practices about the nature of the guru. If one related to the teacher, the guru, says, oh, they're just another person with another opinion. I don't have to pay attention to them. I got my own opinions. Then we'd stay caught in the mind. So the mind has to be able to both perceive and cultivate an attitude of reverence, of surrender, all these different qualities that you see classically described in yogic literature and the Upanishads and the Vedas, about the nature of relating to the guru in that way. And that's partly informed by that adage of God, guru, and self are all one. So if you're relating to the guru, you're literally relating to God in that moment, in that tradition, in that way of then entering that unique archetypal relationship. It's in that way a means for training the mind. How do you relate to the divine? Do you approach it with reverence? Do you how do you sustain that reverence? How do you sustain a sense of awe or a sense of profound respect, of really trying to receive the gifts, contemplate them, understand them, unfold them? All of these then happen in that context. And in that way, it's also practiced to teach the mind to look at the guru in that way. In the ashram in Ganeshpuri, India, several times a day we would chant certain mantras. Same mantras that one might chant to infinite form like Shiva or Vishnu, but you would chant it in doing practices of puja, devotional practices to the guru, whether it was images, icons, statues of Bhagavan Nityananda or the living guru. And there was a mantra, Tvameva mata chapita tvameva, Tvameva bandhushka sakha tvameva, Tvameva vidya dravinam tvameva, Tvameva sarvam mam deva deva. And it means, O Supreme Lord, you are our mother, our father, our brother, our friend. You are the knowledge, and you are the only wealth. You are our everything. Well, that would open the heart in a whole other way, to take it beyond the ordinary appearance of just your connection between two people. It elevates it into this archetypal sublime domain to help uplift our consciousness into that domain, so that we can see not only is the Guru divine, but by recognizing that, we can start to see our own divinity. Because it's all about, in sadhana, finally, that recognition of our own divinity. And then being able to live that into the world. But that's part of why we're in the crucible of that relationship with the divine, is to transform the mind. The ordinary mind, well, it makes things ordinary, right? It makes words ordinary that are divine words. It makes practices ordinary that seem just like, oh, I just do this, or oh, I have to do meditation, I got to do that, I got to repeat a mantra. It contracts things. And in so doing, it loses its divinity. It loses its power. That's what the ordinary mind does. It strips these things of their radiance because it's blind to them. So practice is also about how do we cultivate that. And in so doing, we're also learning, well, how do we relate to this infinitude, this Godhead? And even in relating to the Guru in this context of the Guru-disciple relationship, that's part of what the mind is learning how to do. But it's not limited to that. It's also understanding, how do we do this day by day, moment by moment? We're not just always in relationship with a physical teacher or a physical form. And then how do we do this in Kali Yuga, where dharma is at its lowest ebb? We're finding ones who embody dharma and live true to that live true to what the dharma of a teacher is, to be a selfless servant of all, right? That one has attained that view and views all their work, all their actions in the world as seva. How do we find such a being? Well, for a long time, it's been recognized that that's hard. In the ancient text, the Kularnava Tantra, it says, many are the gurus who will rob you of your wealth, but rare is the one who will steal your pain. The dharma of a teacher is to remove suffering, to show a way to get free of suffering. Across traditions, that's the dharma of a teacher. Kabir, the great poet saint who died in the early 1500s, said, oh, the words Guru, Swami, Super Swami, Master Teacher, Murshid, Yogi, Priest, most of those sporting such a title are just peacocks. The litmus test is, hold them upside down over a cliff for a few hours. If they don't wet their pants, maybe you found a real one. So he's being humorous about it. But it's also part of the dharma of a seeker, the dharma of a student, a practitioner, is to have their eyes open, is in a sense to test the teacher and their teachings, to see, do they walk the talk, do they live the teachings? So we don't collude, because there's so many examples, I don't have to go into them, but so many examples where dharma isn't being upheld by the teacher, but followers choose not to see that and keep following. Well, we have to cut through that. We have to have that discrimination. We have to refine our awareness and our attention. And in this age, to me, and how we've created Anamkara is, that's not the relationship that is promoted through Anamkara and the Anamkara Foundation and me as a teacher of that sort of, that absolute authority of a teacher or the guru or anything like that. It's too fraught with too many problems. and unnecessary, especially in this age where so much knowledge and wisdom. I mean, one of the great qualities of Kali Yuga is knowledge and wisdom is more available now than in any other age. But discrimination, along with dharma, discrimination is kind of at its low ebb. We really have to refine the mind. And so we really have to cultivate our own understanding and understand how do we relate to God, the infinite, our own self, the divine self, the inner guru. We can call our Holy Spirit, Kundalini Shakti, Shekinah, Christ kind. We can call it any kind of name. But part of what we're practicing is how do I relate to that moment by moment? Because that's the living guru-disciple relationship. The guru is God. The guru is yourself. How do you relate to that moment by moment? How do we practice moment by moment, staying connected with that? Because the nature of the mind is to keep wandering off. And in so doing, it abandons our highest nature. It abandons practice. It abandons wisdom. Gets caught up in whatever feelings, impulses, old patterns, samskaras, conditioned mind, call it what you will, and goes running off and then has to kind of claw itself back to where it had wanted to be at one time until something more desirous came up, because it's still caught in this pole of attraction and aversion, attraction and aversion. So we're working with that moment by moment, and we can bring the highest understanding of the guru-disciple relationship into the moment by moment unfolding of our own life by looking at the practices. The practice is the living presence of the divine, the guru, God, in the moment. Right? And so how do we relate to the practice? You know, for example, I talk a lot about mantra because it's one of the it's not just a foundational practice. It is literally an emanation of the divine. It is literally known as the sound form of God. How hard for the mind to hold even that understanding. It can hold it for what? A moment? 5 moments? A minute? How long can it hold that? Because if it really gets that, what else would it want to say? What other thoughts could be more important than Om Namah Shivaya? Om. You repeat the mantra. You're throbbing with the infinite in that moment. Can the mind hold that? No, because it's a leaky vessel. So we have to keep training it to come back. But right there, right in that one practice, we can see, what's our relationship to God? If mantra is God, what's my relationship to that? Don't I always want to hang out with God? Don't I always want to be in the company of God? Don't I always want to see God, hear God, feel God? So God answers that longing with this throb of the infinite. And the mind can barely stay with it. So we don't have to turn the guru-disciple relationship into something that's got to happen in India or Tibet or Nepal or wherever. No, right here, right now. So when we start to look and contemplate what our actions are and what they reveal about how do I relate to the divine moment by moment. If I want to know unity consciousness, or I want to live that rapturous I awareness into this world, then we train the mind. We train the mind. And in part, the mind is being trained to surrender its view, its ordinary view. Surrender that so that you can enter the vision of the infinite, unfolding moment by moment, fully conscious of that. So mantra, how do we see mantra? So many texts extol the nature of mantra. Why do they do that? Well, it's to combat the ordinary mind. The ordinary mind keeps, well, it's just a word, it's a sound. Oh, I've heard other sounds, There's nicer ones I like to listen to. Matter of fact, that song I heard yesterday, that was so nice. The mind just keeps going, spinning off. So even texts have to go, no, this is the great mantra, the only mantra, the real mantra, the unsurpassed mantra. You hear that at the end, at the end of the Heart Sutra. And people go, wait a minute, does that mean it's the only mantra? No, it's the cut through the mind making things ordinary. And so we have to proclaim, wow, this is really it. That's that attempt to reconvince the mind over and over again, no, this really is it. You fully enter this, you have everything. The novelty-seeking mind. Oh, what about this? Or what about that? Couldn't I go here? Couldn't I do that? One mantra is a boat that'll take you across the entire ocean of suffering into the infinite. But the novelty-seeking mind, it gets in that boat for a little while. And he goes, yeah, I think I'll jump in the ocean. Gets caught in thought. Hey, wait a minute, I need a boat. I'll do this other mantra. Gets in that mantra boat for a bit. Oh no, and then it falls out and goes off. On and on and on like that. That's what we're working with. That's how we're training the mind to get more and more one-pointed, to sustain that level of absorption and awareness. Mantra. The golden spoon. The name of the unnameable. The unspeakable word. Throbbing within you right here, right now. If we had the right understanding, we become absorbed in that and remain there forever. In view of the mind and the body and the unfolding of its actions from that state of our own highest sublime witness self, delighting in the unfolding of Shakti's power to move and create and dance in forms. But the ordinary mind, it keeps throwing it aside. It's a choice. This is why Buddha said, watch the mind, watch your thoughts with care, for as you think, so you become. So become mantra. Om Namah Shivaya. I am Shiva. Shiva Hum, Shiva Hum. I am the auspicious one. I am the infinite. Cultivate that capacity to stay with that. Oh mind, don't be caught in the illusion that some other thing is more sublime than God. Think about what the mind is saying when it abandons practice. And this is the same. This can be in relationship, we can look in the same way. What's our relationship to meditation? Meditation as a practice leading to the state of meditation. The gift from the infinite. Say, here's a practice to become absorbed in the truth of who you are. What does the mind do in relationship to, okay, it should meditate every day. Do a practice of meditation every day. Oh, do I have to? How long do I have to? Can I do it shorter? Can I do it longer? Again, what's our relationship to the practice? We can do it in relationship to seva, another foundational practice. this selfless service. That practice alone can take us to the infinite. As it did Brother Lawrence, the Christian mystic, who practiced the presence of the divine. Wonderful old book, Practicing the Presence of God, by Brother Lawrence. No relation. But that living presence, always relating to every moment. There's another Christian mystic, Alonzo the doorkeeper. In the monastery, he wasn't good for much, they thought, so just let him answer the door. But he did it with such a pure heart and pure attitude that anybody knocking at the door was God. He's going to run to the door to welcome God. And he did. And it transformed his vision. So that's all he got to see was God everywhere. He joined with the vision of God. Because what does God see? Only God. So if we want to really plumb the depths, contemplate the richness of the guru-disciple relationship, that's the relationship of you to your own divine self, and how that's reflected in how we engage in practices, how we stay present with that moment by moment. How do we keep coming back to that even if we've abandoned it because of old patterns and the pull of the old patterns of mind, the conditioned mind? How quickly can we return? How quickly can we come back? The divine's always present, always there, open arms, always there. Oh, you've come back. Yes, let's merge. So coming back and examining our practices, our life, how do we stay in connection? Because the mind is an instrument that exists in the domain of duality. So the mind's job in ordinary waking state consciousness is to stay related. So that's why it's relational. In unity consciousness, well, the mind disappears. In samadhi, there's no subject-object split. There's no mind present. Coming back into more ordinary states of consciousness, now informed by our unity consciousness, that also helps to transform the mind. Because even as it's coming back into its domain, conventional reality, things are separate, it carries that knowing that, oh, that separation, that only exists on this level. Well, the infinite knows. Unity consciousness is unbroken. All we see is the divine. All we see is the self. The mind can still relate appropriately because it's an instrument for being able to understand conventional reality. But it gets freed of suffering when it's suffused with that sublime knowing of the truth. We are one. We are one. Shivoham, Shivoham. All is one. All is one. All is Shiva. All is Shiva. So as you go through the day, you look at, practice is continuous. We know this neurophysiologically. We're either practicing going in the direction we want to go, or we're actually practicing going in another direction. Right? So the yogis, they didn't go, oh, I practice for this amount of time. No, you might do a specific practice, but practice is continuous. If we're not practicing, what are we doing? We're turning over our consciousness to unconscious patterns, samskaras, to create more karmas and more patterns and more samskaras and more bondage. Practice is continuous. Very different than, a stress management model of meditation. Well, okay, if you meditate for 20 minutes a day or twice a day, you can calm your amygdala and bring down your blood pressure. That's great. You want to know God as your own self, as the self of all? Revel in that moment by moment. Why would you want to abandon that? So the guru-disciple relationship, it's all about your relationship with your own sublime self and engaging that moment by moment throughout day and night. And so now we're going to chant the mantra, the living throb of the infinite, the mantra Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. I bow to the auspicious one. I bow to the divine. The one that has become everything without losing its sublime, infinite nature. The one that illumines every thought in your mind, every sensation in your body. The consciousness that allows you to know that. The consciousness that even allows you to think, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm happy, I'm safe. The consciousness itself is your infinite self. It's always present, always illuminating experience moment by moment, creating the experience and illuminating it, creating the experience, witnessing it, the dance of Shakti and Shiva. That's you. Know that, you know freedom. Know that you can walk your boundless love and compassion, wisdom and joy into the world moment by moment. So we'll chant now. Become awash in that flood of grace, the power of revelation and transformation that has reached into the domain of our very mind with this throb of the infinite. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shri Mata Kali Devi ki jai. Om Namah Namah Now resting in the awareness. I am that. I am the infinite, the boundless, and the Shiva, the auspicious one, who sees all from that place of sublime equanimity and grace, watches the dance of his beloved in all movements of mind and body, is watching the unfolding of the divine moment by moment. Shivam, Shivam. Kali Mahadevi ki jai. We end with this prayer, and may all our practices truly benefit everyone, and may all beings know complete freedom from suffering. Namaste. So the essence of the guru-disciple relationship is our relationship to the divine, and its essential nature is love. It's often emphasized obedience and surrender. Obedience to what? It's obedience to love. Surrender to what? Surrender to love. Moment by moment, we're invited to know that, relate to that. That living presence is the living presence of love. So that we're practicing compassion, practicing bringing our wisdom into the world, our patience, our joy, all as offerings. And we offer everything to the divine. You offer everything to the Guru. What does that mean? You offer the fullness of heart, fullness of love, the fullness of our loving attention. Moment by moment. We get to revel in that. The delight, knowing we are both the wave and the ocean. The ocean of love. The wave of love. The throb of love. Of mantra. So as Shiva Sutras say, the mind is mantra. Chitta mantraha. The throb of the infinite. Full of Shakti, full of power. Keep the mind absorbed in that pure throb of that boundless love, compassion, wisdom, and grace that is mantra. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Kalima. Om Taritam Soha. Hum Sa. Shiva Hum. Choose one. Invite the mind to let go of its cravings for the appearance of differences. Rest in the one. There's only one. It's you. that into the world. I want to thank you for coming, for bringing the power of your presence, the power of your practices and commitment to the practices to this evening and sharing that with everyone. And I thank you for the many ways you support Anamkara, and through donations, through sharing what we offer, just to be another voice in the chorus of those singing the truth. All this is the divine. Let us live in that knowledge and that wisdom, in the loving compassion that can unite us, empower us to meet any and all challenges. So keep doing the practices and walking that into your world, your life, day by day, moment by moment. Every moment, ask the mind, are you seeing the divine here? Are you feeling the divine in this moment? Is your own sublime self flowering in your heart? It's there. To turn our attention towards it, moment by moment. And thank you. Thank you for coming. I look forward to seeing you next week.